When 13-year-old Jasmine Kim was caught red-handed in the executive break room of Wells Industries, CEO Adrian Wells expected to find a simple case of teenage mischief. Instead, he discovered a desperate girl stuffing sandwiches into her backpack while tears streamed down her face. Her trembling confession about feeding her two younger brothers while their mother lay unconscious in a hospital bed would shatter everything he thought he knew about the people working in his building. What started as a security breach would become the most important conversation of both their lives, leading to changes that would ripple through an entire company and community. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day, and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. The morning sun cast long shadows across the polished marble floors of Wells Industries' corporate headquarters as Adrian Wells stepped out of his private elevator on the 42nd floor. At 38, he had built his technology consulting firm from a two-person startup in his garage to a multinational corporation employing over 15,000 people. His tailored charcoal suit and confident stride reflected the success that had come from years of 16-hour workdays and calculated risks that had paid off handsomely. Adrian's corner office overlooked downtown Seattle, with floor-to-ceiling windows that provided a commanding view of the city he had helped shape through his company's innovative urban planning software. The walls were lined with awards and photographs of him shaking hands with mayors, governors, and tech industry leaders. Everything in his world was ordered, predictable, and under his control. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Adrian arrived at 7:30 sharp, reviewed the quarterly projections that his assistant Patricia had left on his desk, and prepared for a series of back-to-back meetings with potential clients. He was known throughout the industry for his meticulous attention to detail and his ability to spot problems before they became crises. It was this same instinct that made him pause when he noticed something unusual on the security monitor that displayed feeds from throughout the building. The executive break room on his floor was supposed to be empty at this hour. The cleaning crew had finished their rounds at 6, and none of his senior staff typically arrived before 8:30. Yet there was movement in the room, a small figure hunched over the refrigerator with what appeared to be frantic urgency. Adrian frowned as he leaned closer to the monitor. The figure was too small to be an adult, and the movements were all wrong for a professional thief. There was something desperate and hurried about the way the person was rifling through the refrigerator, stuffing items into what looked like a worn backpack. His first instinct was to call security, but something held him back. Maybe it was the way the figure's shoulders shook, or how they kept glancing toward the door as if expecting to be caught at any moment. Instead of reaching for his phone, Adrian found himself walking toward the break room, his footsteps silent on the carpeted hallway. The break room door was slightly ajar, and through the gap, Adrian could see a young girl with straight black hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore a faded blue sweatshirt that was too big for her small frame and jeans with worn knees. Her hands moved quickly as she wrapped sandwiches in napkins and placed them carefully in her backpack, alongside what appeared to be fruit cups and packages of crackers. Adrian watched for a moment, studying her technique. This wasn't random grabbing, he realized. She was being selective, choosing items that would travel well and provide substantial nutrition. There was a methodical quality to her actions that suggested this wasn't her first time doing this. When he finally pushed the door open, the girl spun around with the reflexes of someone who had learned to be constantly vigilant. Her dark eyes were wide with terror, and Adrian could see that her cheeks were streaked with tears. She clutched a turkey sandwich to her chest as if it were the most precious thing in the world. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Please don't call the police." Adrian had prepared himself for defiance or attempted escape, but the raw fear in her voice caught him off guard. This wasn't a hardened criminal or even a typical troubled teenager. This was a child who looked like she hadn't slept in days, whose clothes hung loose on a frame that suggested she wasn't getting enough to eat herself. "What's your name?" he asked, keeping his voice gentle as he stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. The girl's eyes darted to the exit, calculating whether she could push past him and run. Adrian deliberately moved away from the door, giving her a clear path if she chose to take it. The gesture seemed to register with her, and some of the panic faded from her expression. "Jasmine," she said finally. "Jasmine Kim." "I'm Adrian," he replied, pulling out one of the break room chairs and sitting down so that he wouldn't tower over her. "Can you tell me why you're taking food from our refrigerator, Jasmine?" Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks as she clutched the sandwich tighter. I can't pay you back right now," she stammered. "But I will, I promise. I'll get a job as soon as I'm old enough, and I'll pay back every single thing I took." Adrian studied her face, noting the dark circles under her eyes and the way her hand trembled as she wiped her nose with the back of her sleeve. "I'm not worried about payment right now," he said. "I'm more concerned about why a girl your age is here at 7:45 in the morning taking food. Shouldn't you be getting ready for school?" The question seemed to break something inside her, and Jasmine sank into the chair across from him, her backpack sliding to the floor with a soft thud. "I can't go to school," she whispered. "Not right now." "Why not?" Jasmine looked down at her hands, which were clasped tightly in her lap. "My mom is in the hospital," she said, her voice so quiet that Adrian had to lean forward to hear her. "She's been there for 2 weeks. The doctors say she might not wake up." Adrian felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What about your father? Other family members?" "Dad left when I was 8, Jasmine said without looking up. "It's just me and my brothers now. Danny is 9 and Marcus is 6. They don't understand why Mom won't come home." The pieces were starting to fall into place for Adrian, but he needed to hear the rest of the story. "Where are your brothers now?" "At home," Jasmine said. "Danny tries to take care of Marcus, but he's scared all the time. They're both hungry, and I don't know what to do." She looked up at Adrian with eyes that held too much pain for someone so young. "The food stamps ran out last week, and the neighbor who was helping us got evicted from her apartment. I'd been coming here in the mornings before the security guard starts his rounds on this floor, taking just enough to feed them breakfast and pack them something for later." Adrian's mind raced as he processed what she was telling him. "How long have you been doing this?" 4 days, Jasmine admitted. "I know it's stealing and I know it's wrong, but they were crying because they were so hungry, and I didn't know what else to do." The vulnerability in her voice hit Adrian like a physical blow. He thought about his own childhood, growing up in a comfortable suburban home where his biggest worry had been whether he'd make the varsity basketball team. The idea of a 13-year-old girl trying to feed 2 younger children while their mother fought for her life in a hospital bed was almost incomprehensible to him. "How have you been getting into the building?" he asked. Jasmine shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "My mom works here," she said. "She's on the night cleaning crew. She has a key card, and I know the security codes because I used to come with her sometimes when she couldn't find a babysitter." Adrian's throat tightened. Maria Kim, he realized. The woman who had been cleaning his office for the past 3 years, who always had a shy smile and worked with quiet efficiency. He had heard that she was in the hospital, but he hadn't connected her absence with the girl sitting across from him. "Your mother is Maria," he said, and Jasmine nodded. "She always talked about how nice everyone here was," Jasmine said. "She said people left good food in the refrigerators and that it would probably just go bad over the weekend anyway. I thought maybe if I was careful and didn't take too much, no one would notice." Adrian found himself thinking about all the times he had thrown away leftover lunches without a second thought, while just floors below, this girl was calculating how to stretch a few sandwiches across 3 meals for her brothers. "Jasmine," he said carefully, "when was the last time you ate?" She shrugged as if the question wasn't important. "I had some crackers yesterday." "That's not what I asked. When did you last eat a real meal?" The silence stretched between them as Jasmine stared at her hands. Finally, she whispered, "Sunday, I think." I wanted to make sure there was enough for Danny and Marcus. Adrian felt a wave of anger wash over him, not at Jasmine, but at a system that could allow a child to go hungry while her mother lay unconscious in a hospital bed. "Where is your mother being treated?" he asked. "Seattle General," Jasmine replied. "She collapsed at work 2 weeks ago. The doctors say she had something called a brain aneurysm. They did surgery, but she hasn't woken up yet." Adrian knew Seattle General well. His company had donated money for their new pediatric wing, and he served on their board of directors. He made a mental note to call Dr. Elizabeth Chen, the chief of neurosurgery, as soon as this conversation was over. "What about social services?" he asked. "Haven't they been in contact with you?" Jasmine's eyes filled with fresh tears. "They came to the hospital when Mom first got sick," she said. "They said they might have to put Danny and Marcus in foster care if there wasn't a family member who could take care of them. I told them I was 18 and that I could handle everything." "You lied to them?" "I had to," Jasmine said fiercely. "Danny and Marcus have already lost Dad, and now Mom might die. I couldn't let them be taken away from me too. We're all we have left." Adrian marveled at the fierce protectiveness in her voice. At 13, Jasmine Kim had taken on responsibilities that would challenge most adults, and she was doing it out of love for her brothers. "How have you been managing?" he asked. "I mean, beyond the food situation." Jasmine wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "It's hard," she admitted. "I have to walk Marcus to school every morning and pick him up every afternoon. Danny is supposed to ride the bus to his school, but sometimes he gets scared and won't go. Then I have to take him too, which means I miss the morning visiting hours at the hospital." Adrian could see the exhaustion in every line of her small body. She was carrying a burden that no child should have to bear, and she was doing it alone. "What time do visiting hours end at the hospital?" he asked. 8 o'clock, Jasmine said. "But I can only stay until 7 because I have to get home to make sure the boys eat dinner and do their homework." "Well, I could stay until 7 when we had food in the house." Adrian stood up slowly, careful not to make any sudden movements that might startle her. "Jasmine, I want you to listen to me very carefully. You're not in trouble, and you're not going to get in trouble. What you did, taking the food, was not stealing. It was survival." She looked up at him with confusion in her dark eyes. "But I took things that didn't belong to me." "You took things that were going to be thrown away to feed your hungry brothers," Adrian corrected. "That's not the same thing at all." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "I want to help you and your brothers. Will you let me do that?" Jasmine's expression shifted to one of wariness. "I don't need charity," she said with a pride that reminded Adrian of her mother's quiet dignity. "This isn't charity," Adrian said. "This is one human being helping another. Your mother has worked for this company for 3 years. She's part of our family, which makes you and your brothers part of our family too." The fight seemed to go out of Jasmine all at once, and she slumped forward in her chair. "I'm so tired," she whispered. "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up." Adrian's heart ached for this girl who had been forced to grow up too fast. "You don't have to keep it up alone anymore," he said. "But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Jasmine studied his face for a long moment, searching for any sign of deception or ulterior motive. Whatever she saw there must have reassured her because she nodded slowly. "Good," Adrian said. "First things first. Have you had breakfast today?" She shook her head. "Then we're going to fix that right now." Adrian opened the refrigerator and began pulling out items. "What do you like to eat?" "Anything," Jasmine said quietly. "I'm not picky." Adrian made her a sandwich with turkey, cheese, and lettuce, adding a bag of chips and an apple. He watched as she ate with the careful, methodical bites of someone who wasn't sure when their next meal would come. "Better?" he asked when she had finished. Jasmine nodded, and some color had returned to her pale cheeks. "Thank you." "Now," Adrian said, settling back into his chair, "I need to ask you some questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Can you do that?" "Yes." "How much money do you have for groceries and other expenses?" Jasmine's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. $12.37, she said. "Mom had some cash hidden in her jewelry box for emergencies." Adrian did quick calculations in his head. $12 wouldn't buy enough food to feed 3 children for more than a day or two, especially if Jasmine was trying to pack lunches for her brothers. "What about utilities? Rent?" "Mom paid the rent for this month before she got sick," Jasmine said. "But next month's rent is $600, and it's due in 2 weeks. The electricity bill came yesterday, and it's $143. Adrian felt his chest tighten. Even if Maria recovered quickly, which seemed unlikely given the severity of her condition, the family would be facing eviction and utility shutoffs within weeks. "Jasmine," he said gently, "I'm going to make some phone calls and arrange some help for you and your brothers. But I need you to promise me something." "What?" "I need you to promise that you'll let me help. No more trying to handle this alone. No more going hungry so your brothers can eat. Can you promise me that?" Tears were streaming down her face again, but this time they seemed to be tears of relief rather than desperation. "I promise," she whispered. Adrian stood up and walked to his phone. "I'm going to call my assistant and have her bring some food up here for you to take home to your brothers. Then I'm going to make some arrangements." Over the next hour, Adrian made a series of phone calls that would change the trajectory of the Kim family's life. He started with Dr. Elizabeth Chen at Seattle General, who gave him a detailed update on Maria's condition. The surgery had been successful in repairing the aneurysm, but Maria was still in a medically induced coma to allow her brain to heal. The prognosis was cautiously optimistic, but recovery would likely take weeks or even months. His next call was to Patricia, his assistant, who had worked for him for 8 years and had become adept at handling his more unusual requests. When he explained the situation, she immediately offered to coordinate emergency assistance for the Kim family. "Sir," Patricia said, her voice thick with emotion, "Maria is one of the sweetest people I've ever met. I had no idea she was raising 3 children on her own." "Neither did I," Adrian admitted. "Can you contact our employee assistance program and see what kind of support they can provide? Also, I want you to reach out to Seattle General and make sure all of Maria's medical bills are covered under our insurance plan." "Of course," Patricia said. "What about the children? Do they need immediate assistance?" Adrian looked at Jasmine, who was sitting quietly in the break room chair, looking smaller and more fragile than any 13-year-old should. "Yes," he said. "They need everything. Food, clothing, school supplies, and someone to make sure they're safe and cared for while their mother recovers." After ending the call with Patricia, Adrian contacted Sarah Martinez, the director of a non-profit organization that his company had supported for years. Children First specialized in providing emergency assistance to families in crisis, and Sarah was known for her ability to mobilize resources quickly and efficiently. "Adrian," Sarah said when he explained the situation, "this is exactly the kind of case we exist to handle. Give me 2 hours, and I'll have a team ready to assess the family's needs and put together a comprehensive support plan." "What about the immediate needs?" Adrian asked. "The children need food today, and they need someone to make sure they're getting to school. I can have someone at their apartment within an hour," Sarah assured him. "We'll bring groceries, and we can arrange for transportation to and from school until we get a more permanent solution in place." Adrian felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. This was what he was good at, solving problems, and coordinating resources to achieve specific outcomes. The difference was that this time, the stakes weren't quarterly profits or market share. They were the lives of 3 children who had already been through too much. His final call was to his lawyer, David Brennan, who specialized in family law and had handled several adoption cases for Adrian's friends and colleagues. "David," Adrian said, "I need you to look into the legal situation for a family in crisis. The mother is hospitalized, and the oldest child has been caring for her 2 younger brothers. What are their options for maintaining custody and DAPA? Avoiding foster care?" David asked several pointed questions about the family's circumstances and Maria's prognosis. "The good news is that if the mother is expected to recover, the court system will generally try to keep the family together," he said. "The challenge is proving that adequate care is being provided for the children during the mother's recovery period. What if that adequate care was being provided by a third party?" Adrian asked. "Someone with the resources to ensure the children's needs are met? Are you talking about formal guardianship?" David asked. "Because that's a significant legal commitment, Adrian." Adrian paused, surprised by his own question. The idea of becoming personally involved in the Kim family's situation hadn't consciously occurred to him until that moment, but now that he had voiced it, he realized it felt right. "Maybe," he said. "Let me think about it and get back to you." When Adrian returned to the break room, he found Jasmine packing the remaining food items back into her backpack with the same careful precision she had used when he first discovered her. "You don't have to do that," he said gently. "I told you, help is on the way." Jasmine looked up at him with eyes that held a lifetime of disappointment. "People say that a lot," she said. "But then something comes up, or they decide it's too complicated, or they just forget." Adrian sat down across from her again, recognizing the protective cynicism that had developed from too many broken promises. "Jasmine, I want you to look at me." She raised her eyes to meet his. "I don't make promises lightly," he said. "And I don't forget about people who are important to me. You and your brothers are important to me now, which means I'm not going anywhere." Something in his tone must have convinced her, because she stopped packing the food and instead pulled her backpack onto her lap like a security blanket. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we make sure you and your brothers are taken care of," Adrian said. "I've arranged for someone from a family services organization to come to your apartment this morning with groceries and anything else you need. They're also going to help coordinate care for Danny and Marcus, so you can spend more time with your mother at the hospital." Jasmine's eyes widened. "You mean I can see her more often?" "Every day if you want to," Adrian confirmed. "And when you're not at the hospital, you should be in school, not worrying about whether your brothers have enough to eat." "I can't go back to school," Jasmine protested. "What if something happens to them while I'm gone? What if Marcus gets scared and Danny doesn't know what to do?" "That's not going to happen," Adrian said firmly. "Because there are going to be responsible adults making sure they're safe and cared for. Adults whose job it is to worry about those things so you don't have to." Adrian could see the war playing out in Jasmine's expression between hope and fear, between the desperate desire to believe that help was really coming and the learned caution that had kept her family together for the past 2 weeks. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "Of course." "Why are you doing this? You don't even know us." Adrian considered the question carefully. The honest answer was complicated, involving his own sense of responsibility as an employer, his guilt over not knowing about Maria's situation sooner, and something deeper that he wasn't quite ready to examine. "Your mother has worked for my company for 3 years," he said. "In that time, she's been reliable, hard-working, and kind to everyone she meets. She's earned my respect and my loyalty. But more than that, she's raising 3 remarkable children. And I believe those children deserve every opportunity to succeed in life." "Remarkable?" Jasmine repeated, as if the word was foreign to her. "You've spent the last 2 weeks sacrificing your own needs to take care of your brothers," Adrian said. "You've made sure they got to school, tried to keep them fed, and somehow managed to visit your mother in the hospital. At 13 years old, you've shown more courage and selflessness than most adults manage in a lifetime. If that's not remarkable, I don't know what is." Jasmine wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I just did what I had to do." "Exactly," Adrian said. "And that's what makes you remarkable." A soft knock on the break room door interrupted their conversation. Patricia entered carrying a large paper bag and wearing the kind of warm maternal expression that had made her indispensable to Adrian over the years. "I brought lunch for Jasmine to take home to her brothers," Patricia said, setting the bag on the table. "Turkey sandwiches, fruit cups, cookies, and some juice boxes. There's also breakfast for tomorrow morning." "Thank you," Jasmine said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. Patricia knelt down next to Jasmine's chair. "Sweetheart, I want you to know that everyone here thinks the world of your mother. She's always so proud when she talks about you and your brothers." "She talks about us?" Jasmine asked. "All the time," Patricia confirmed. "She shows us your report cards and tells us about Danny's soccer games and Marcus's art projects. She loves you three more than anything in the world." Fresh tears spilled down Jasmine's cheeks. "I miss her so much," she whispered. Patricia wrapped her arms around the girl, and Adrian watched as some of the tension that Jasmine had been carrying for weeks finally began to release. This was what she had needed all along, he realized. Not just food and money, but the assurance that she wasn't alone. "Patricia," Adrian said, "can you drive Jasmine home? I want to make sure she connects with the family services team, and I'd like you to assess what other immediate needs there might be." "Of course," Patricia said. "Should I clear your schedule for the rest of the morning?" Adrian nodded. The 3 client meetings he had planned suddenly seemed insignificant compared to making sure the Kim family had everything they needed. The drive to the Kim family's apartment complex took 20 minutes through downtown Seattle traffic. Adrian sat in the passenger seat of Patricia's sedan, while Jasmine directed them through a neighborhood he rarely had reason to visit. The buildings were older and showed signs of deferred maintenance, but the area was clean and seemed safe. The Kim family lived in a 2-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of a brick building that had probably been constructed in the 1970s. As they climbed the narrow staircase, Adrian could hear children's voices from behind the apartment door, one patient and older, the other higher-pitched and insistent. "That's Danny trying to get Marcus to eat breakfast," Jasmine explained as she fumbled with her key. "Marcus doesn't like cereal without milk, but we ran out yesterday." The door opened to reveal a scene that broke Adrian's heart. The apartment was small but meticulously clean, with furniture that had clearly been chosen for function rather than style. A 9-year-old boy with Jasmine's dark hair and serious eyes was sitting at a small dining table across from a younger boy who was pushing a bowl of dry cereal around with a spoon. "Jasmine!" The younger boy, who must be Marcus, jumped up from his chair and ran to hug his sister. "Danny made me eat cereal, but it tastes weird without milk." "I know, baby," Jasmine said, smoothing his hair. "But look what I brought." She held up the bag of food that Patricia had prepared. Danny approached more cautiously, his eyes fixed on the 2 adults who had accompanied his sister. "Who are they?" he asked. "This is Mr. Wells and Miss Patricia," Jasmine said. "They work where Mom cleans offices. They brought us lunch." Adrian knelt down to Danny's eye level. "Your sister told me you've been taking very good care of Marcus while she visits your mom in the hospital." Danny straightened his shoulders with visible pride. "I'm the man of the house now," he said solemnly. "That's a big responsibility," Adrian acknowledged. "But you know what? I think it's time for some grown-ups to help out, so you can just be a kin again." Before Danny could respond, there was another knock at the door. Patricia answered it to find Sarah Martinez and 2 other women from Children First, their arms loaded with grocery bags and supplies. "You must be Jasmine," Sarah said warmly. "I'm Sarah, and we're here to help." Over the next hour, Adrian watched as the children's first team efficiently assessed the family's needs and began implementing solutions. They stocked the refrigerator and pantry with enough food for 2 weeks, arranged for a volunteer to pick up Danny and Marcus from school each day, and scheduled regular check-ins to make sure the family had ongoing dapper support. Most importantly, they did all of this while treating Jasmine with the respect and dignity of someone who had been successfully managing her family's crisis, rather than as a child who had been failing at an impossible task. "Jasmine," Sarah said, as her team finished organizing the kitchen, "I understand you've been missing school to take care of your brothers and visit your mother." Jasmine nodded, her expression immediately becoming defensive. "I'll go back as soon as Mom comes home." "Actually, I think you should go back tomorrow," Sarah said gently. "We're going to have someone here every day to make sure Danny and Marcus get to and from school safely. That frees you up to focus on your education and spend time with your mother during regular visiting hours." "But what if something happens?" Jasmine asked, voicing the fear that had kept her vigilant for the past 2 weeks. "Then someone will call you immediately," Sarah assured her. "You'll never be more than a phone call away from your brothers." Adrian could see Jasmine struggling with the idea of relinquishing control, even when it meant accepting help she desperately needed. It was a conflict he understood well from his own experience as a business owner who had difficulty delegating responsibility. "Jasmine," he said, "can I tell you something I learned when I was starting my company?" She nodded. "I used to think that I had to do everything myself to make sure it was done right. I worked 18-hour days and never took vacations because I was convinced that the business would fall apart if I wasn't there every minute." Adrian paused, remembering those exhausting early years. "You know what I discovered?" "What?" "Why? I discovered that when you surround yourself with good people and trust them to do their jobs, everything works better, not just for the business, but for everyone involved." Jasmine looked around the apartment, taking in the stocked refrigerator, her brothers happily eating sandwiches at the table, and the team of adults who had materialized to support her family. "It's hard to let other people help," she admitted. "It is," Adrian agreed. "But it's also one of the bravest things you can do." That afternoon, Adrian accompanied Jasmine to Seattle General Hospital for her daily visit with her mother. Maria Kim lay in the intensive care unit, connected to monitors and breathing tubes, but her vital signs were strong and stable. Dr. Chen explained that the swelling in Maria's brain was decreasing and that there were encouraging signs of neurological activity. "She can hear you," Dr. Chen told Jasmine. "Talking to her, reading to her, playing music, all of these things can help stimulate her brain and encourage her recovery." Adrian watched as Jasmine took her mother's hand and began telling her about her day, describing the help that had arrived and assuring her that Danny and Marcus were safe and well-fed. There was something infinitely touching about this young girl taking care of her unconscious mother with the same fierce protectiveness she had shown her brothers. "Mom," Jasmine said softly, "Mr. Wells says he's going to make sure we're okay until you wake up. He seems really nice, and this Patricia reminds me of Grandma Kim." Adrian felt a tightness in his chest as he realized that he had become part of this family's story in a way he hadn't anticipated. What had started as a simple case of employee assistance had evolved into something much more personal and meaningful. Over the following days, Adrian found himself thinking about the Kim family constantly. He called Sarah Martinez twice daily for updates, visited Maria in the hospital every evening after work, and had Patricia coordinate with Jasmine's school to make sure she had all the supplies and support she needed to catch up on missed assignments. On Friday afternoon, Patricia knocked on his office door with news that made Adrian's day. "Jasmine's teachers say she's remarkable," Patricia reported. "Despite missing 2 weeks of school, she's already caught up on most of her assignments, and her test scores are in the top 5% of her class." "That doesn't surprise me," Adrian said. "What about Danny and Marcus?" They're adjusting well to the new routine, Patricia said. The volunteer driver says Danny has been very responsible about making sure Marcus has his backpack and lunch every day. And Marcus apparently told his teacher that his sister is a superhero. Adrian smiled at that. In Marcus's world, Jasmine absolutely was a superhero. That evening, Adrian arrived at the hospital to find Jasmine reading aloud to her mother from a book about space exploration. She looked up when he entered the room, and he was struck by how much healthier she appeared after just a few days of regular meals and adequate sleep. "How was school today?" he asked. "Good," Jasmine said. "My English teacher said I wrote one of the best essays she's ever received from a 7th grader." "What was the topic?" Jasmine's cheeks flushed slightly. "We had to write about someone we admire and explain why they're a hero." "Who did you choose?" "Mom," Jasmine said simply. "I wrote about how she worked 2 jobs to take care of us after Dad left, and how she always made sure we had everything we needed, even when things were tight." Adrian felt his throat constrict with emotion. "I'd like to read that essay sometime, if you're willing to share it." "Really? Really? I have a feeling your mother would be very proud of it." Dr. Chen chose that moment to enter the room, carrying a clipboard and wearing the kind of expression that made Adrian's pulse quicken with anticipation. "Good evening, Jasmine," Dr. Chen said warmly. "I have some very good news about your mother." Jasmine's hand tightened on her mother's arm. "What kind of news?" "The latest brain scans show that the swelling has decreased significantly, and her neurological responses are much stronger than they were even yesterday," Dr. Chen explained. "We're going to begin reducing the sedation tomorrow to see if she's ready to wake up on her own." Jasmine burst into tears, but this time they were tears of joy and relief. "Does that mean she's going to be okay?" "It means we're very optimistic about her recovery," Dr. Chen said carefully. "There may be some rehabilitation needed, and recovery from this type of injury can take time, but all the signs are pointing in the right direction." Adrian felt his own eyes welling up as he watched Jasmine lean over to whisper to her mother, telling her about Dr. Chen's news and begging her to wake up soon. Over the weekend, Adrian found himself at the hospital more often than he had planned. On Saturday morning, he brought Danny and Marcus to visit their mother, coordinating with the nursing staff to make sure the boys understood what to expect from seeing her connected to medical equipment. Marcus, at 6 years old, was primarily concerned with whether his mother would still recognize him when she woke up. Danny, with the seriousness of his 9 years, asked thoughtful questions about brain injuries and recovery times that impressed the medical staff. "Will Mom still be able to help me with my math homework?" Danny asked Dr. Chen during her rounds. "She might need some time to remember certain things," Dr. Chen explained gently. "But the part of her brain that loves you and wants to help you learn wasn't affected by her injury." On Sunday afternoon, Adrian was reviewing quarterly reports in his home office when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Seattle General Hospital, and his heart immediately began racing. "Mr. Wells?" It was Jasmine's voice, breathless with excitement. "She's awake! Mom is awake!" Adrian was at the hospital within 20 minutes, arriving to find the Kim family reunited around Maria's hospital bed. Maria was sitting up slightly, looking pale and disoriented but unmistakably conscious and alert. Danny and Marcus were pressed against either side of her bed, chattering excitedly about everything she had missed while she was sleeping. "Mama," Marcus was saying, "Jasmine got in trouble for taking sandwiches, but it was okay because she was feeding us, and now Mr. Wells is our friend." Maria's confused gaze moved from her youngest son to Adrian, who was standing quietly in the doorway. Recognition flickered in her eyes, followed immediately by embarrassment and concern. "Mr. Wells," she said, her voice hoarse from the breathing tube that had been removed just hours earlier. "I'm so sorry. Jasmine told me what happened. I'll pay back every penny." Adrian stepped forward, moved by the fact that Maria's first concern upon waking from a coma was making amends for her daughter's actions. Maria, please don't worry about that. The only thing that matters is that you're awake and getting better. Jasmine moved to her mother's side, taking her hand carefully. Mom, Mr. Wells helped us. He made sure Danny and Marcus had food and got to school safely. He's the reason we're all still together. Maria's eyes filled with tears as she looked at Adrian. I don't understand. Why would you do that for us? Because you're family, Adrian said simply. Anyone who works for Wells Industries is family, and family takes care of each other. Over the next few days, as Maria grew stronger and began the process of recovery, Adrian learned more about the woman who had been quietly cleaning his office for 3 years. She had immigrated to the United States from South Korea when Jasmine was 5, speaking minimal English and carrying dreams of providing better opportunities for her children. She had worked multiple jobs to support her family after her husband left, taking English classes at night and saving every penny she could for her children's education. Jasmine wants to be a doctor, Maria told Adrian during one of his visits. She's always been so smart, so determined. I just wanted to make sure she had the chance to follow her dreams. She will, Adrian assured her. And Danny and Marcus will have the same opportunities. Dr. Chen had explained that Maria's recovery would take several more weeks, followed by months of physical and occupational therapy to help her regain her full strength and coordination. The medical bills would be substantial, even with insurance coverage, and Maria would not be able to return to work for at least 3 months. Adrian had already made arrangements to cover all of Maria's medical expenses and to continue her salary during her recovery period. But he was beginning to realize that his involvement with the Kim family was going to extend far beyond emergency assistance. On Thursday evening, Adrian found himself in his office long after most of his employees had gone home, but he wasn't thinking about quarterly projections or client presentations. Instead, he was researching educational opportunities and scholarship programs that might benefit Jasmine and her brothers. Patricia knocked on his door at 7:30. I thought you might still be here, she said. I brought you some dinner. Thank you, Adrian said, accepting the container of soup she offered. Patricia, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think I'm getting too personally involved in the Kim family situation? Patricia sat down in the chair across from his desk, considering the question carefully. I think you're doing what any decent human being would do when faced with a family in crisis, she said. But I also think there's something else going on here. What do you mean? I've worked for you for 8 years, Adrian. I've seen you donate money to dozens of charities and causes, but I've never seen you get personally involved the way you have with this family. There's something about Jasmine that reminds you of yourself, isn't there? Adrian was quiet for a long moment, surprised by Patricia's insight. Maybe, he admitted. When I was her age, I had every advantage imaginable. Loving parents, financial security, excellent schools. I never had to worry about where my next meal was coming from or whether my family would stay together. And seeing what she's accomplished under such difficult circumstances makes you wonder what she could achieve with the same advantages you had, Patricia finished. Something like that, Adrian said. She has the intelligence and drive to do anything she wants in life. She shouldn't be held back by circumstances beyond her control. Patricia smiled. Then maybe the question isn't whether you're too involved, but whether you're involved enough. That night, Adrian lay awake thinking about Patricia's words and about the conversation he'd had with his lawyer earlier in the week. The idea of formal guardianship had seemed premature then, but now it was beginning to feel like the logical next step. The Kim family needed more than emergency assistance. They needed long-term stability, educational opportunities, and the kind of support system that would allow all 3 children to reach their full potential. Adrian had the resources to provide all of that, but more importantly, he had come to genuinely care about their well-being in a way that surprised him. On Friday morning, Adrian called David Brennan to discuss the possibility of becoming the Kim family's legal guardian while Maria completed her recovery. It's an unusual situation, David said. Typically, guardianship is considered when the parent is unable to care for the children permanently, but given Maria's medical condition and the family's financial circumstances, the court might be willing to approve a temporary guardianship arrangement. What would that involve? Adrian asked. You would have legal responsibility for the children's daily care, education, and medical decisions, David explained. Maria would retain her parental rights, but you would have the authority to make decisions on their behalf. And after Maria recovers? The guardianship would end, and the children would return to their mother's care. But Adrian, this is a significant commitment. Are you prepared for the reality of having 3 children depending on you? Adrian thought about Jasmine's fierce determination to protect her brothers, about Danny's serious acceptance of responsibility beyond his years, and about Marcus's innocent trust that the adults in his life would keep him safe. Yes, he said, I am. That afternoon, Adrian met with Sarah Martinez and her team to discuss transitioning from emergency assistance to a more permanent support structure. What you're proposing is extraordinary, Sarah said. I've been doing this work for 15 years, and I've never seen someone step up the way you have for this family. They're extraordinary people, Adrian replied. They deserve extraordinary support. Have you discussed this with Jasmine and her brothers? Not yet. I wanted to make sure all the legal and logistical details were in place first. Sarah nodded approvingly. That's wise. Children who have been through trauma need stability and certainty. If you're going to make this commitment, you need to be absolutely sure you can follow through. I am sure, Adrian said without hesitation. That evening, Adrian visited the hospital to find Maria sitting in a chair next to her bed, looking stronger than she had since waking up. Jasmine was helping her with physical therapy exercises, while Danny and Marcus worked on homework at a small table the nursing staff had provided. Mr. Wells, Maria said, attempting to stand when she saw him. Please, don't get up, Adrian said quickly. How are you feeling today? Better every day, Maria replied. Dr. Chen says I might be able to go home next week, though I'll still need help with some things. Adrian glanced at Jasmine, who was pretending to focus on her homework, but was obviously listening to every word. Maria, I'd like to talk to you about that, about what happens when you come home. I've been thinking about that too, Maria said. I know I will be able to work for a while, and I'm worried about how we'll manage the rent and other expenses. That's actually what I wanted to discuss with you, Adrian said. I have a proposal, but I want to make sure you understand that there's no pressure to accept it. Maria's expression became cautious. What kind of proposal? Adrian took a deep breath, aware that what he was about to say would change all of their lives. I'd like to offer you and your children a place to live while you complete your recovery. I have a large house with plenty of room, and it would allow me to help with the children's daily care while you focus on getting better. The room fell silent except for the quiet hum of medical equipment. Jasmine had stopped pretending to do homework and was staring at Adrian with wide eyes. Danny and Marcus had also stopped working and were listening intently. I don't understand, Maria said finally. You want us to live in your house? I want to make sure your family has everything you need to not just survive, but to thrive, Adrian said. Jasmine is incredibly bright and has the potential to achieve anything she sets her mind to. Danny is responsible and caring beyond his years. Marcus is creative and curious about everything around him. All 3 of them deserve every possible opportunity to succeed. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Wells, I can't accept such generosity. It's too much. It's not generosity, Adrian said firmly. It's investment. I'm investing in 3 remarkable young people who are going to make significant contributions to the world someday. Jasmine spoke up for the first time since Adrian had arrived. What about when Mom gets better? What happens then? Then you'll have choices, Adrian said. Your mother will decide what's best for your family. But in the meantime, you'll all have stability, security, and the support you need to focus on healing and growing." Maria looked at her 3 children, seeing the hope and excitement in their faces despite their attempts to appear calm. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course," Adrian said. "Take all the time you need." Over the weekend, Adrian prepared his house for the possibility of welcoming the Kim family. His 4-bedroom home in the Bellevue Hills had been designed for entertaining business associates and hosting the occasional overnight guest, but it had never been home to children. He converted his guest rooms into bedrooms suitable for teenagers and young children, stocking them with furniture, clothing, and supplies that Sarah Martinez's team had recommended. He installed safety locks on cabinets and outlets, researched the best local schools, and found himself wandering through toy stores and bookshops with the focused intensity he usually reserved for business negotiations. On Monday morning, Maria called him at his office. "Mr. Wells," she said, her voice strong and clear, "I've made a decision about your offer." Adrian's heart began racing. "What have you decided?" "I want to accept," Maria said. "But I have conditions." "What kind of conditions?" "I want to contribute to the household in whatever way I can, even if it's just helping with cooking or cleaning. I don't want to be a burden." "Maria, you could never be a burden." "And I want to make sure that children understand that this is temporary," Maria continued. "That we're guests in your home, and we need to be respectful and grateful." "They're not guests," Adrian said. "They're family." There was a long pause before Maria spoke again. "Why are you doing this, Mr. Wells? Really?" Adrian considered the question, searching for an answer that would encompass everything he felt about this remarkable family. "Because 3 weeks ago, I thought I understood what success looked like," he said finally. "I thought it was about profit margins and market share and industry recognition. But watching Jasmine sacrifice everything to take care of her brothers, seeing the way all 3 of you support each other no matter what, that's shown me what real success looks like. You've taught me more about courage and love and resilience than I learned in all my years of business school." Maria was crying now. He could hear it in her voice. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for seeing us, for caring about us. Thank you for letting me be part of your family," Adrian replied. The transition happened quickly once the decision was made. Maria was discharged from the hospital on Wednesday, and by Friday evening, the Kim family was settling into their new temporary home. Adrian watched from his kitchen window as Danny and Marcus explored the backyard, their laughter carrying across the perfectly manicured lawn that had never before echoed with the sounds of children at play. Jasmine was more reserved, helping her mother unpack their belongings and maintaining the careful politeness of someone who still wasn't entirely sure this new situation was real. Adrian understood her caution. She had been the family's protector for so long that learning to trust others would take time. "Jasmine," he said that evening as she helped him prepare dinner, "I want you to know that nothing about this arrangement changes who you are or diminishes what you've accomplished. You saved your family. Everything that's happening now is because of your courage and determination." Jasmine looked up from the vegetables she was chopping. "I was scared every single day," she admitted. "I kept thinking I was going to mess up and lose Danny and Marcus." "But you didn't mess up," Adrian said. "You made hard decisions and sacrifices that kept your family together. That's not something to be ashamed of, it's something to be proud of." "I still worry about them," Jasmine said. "I don't know how to turn that off." "You don't have to turn it off," Adrian said. "Caring about your brothers is part of who you are. But now you have help with that caring, so you can also focus on being a kid sometimes." Over the following weeks, Adrian watched the Kim family begin to heal and flourish in ways that filled him with profound satisfaction. Maria grew stronger each day, participating in physical therapy and slowly regaining her independence. Danny joined a youth soccer league and discovered a talent for the sport that brought joy back into his serious young face. Marcus enrolled in art classes and spent hours creating elaborate drawings that he proudly displayed on the refrigerator. And Jasmine, gradually, began to allow herself to be a 13-year-old girl again. She joined the school's debate team and discovered a passion for public speaking. Her grades, already excellent, improved even further as she no longer had to divide her attention between academics and family survival. "She's remarkable," Jasmine's English teacher told Adrian during a parent-teacher conference. "I've never had a student who combines such analytical thinking with such emotional intelligence. She has the potential to do anything she wants in life." Adrian felt a surge of pride that surprised him with its intensity. Somewhere along the way, Jasmine's success had become as important to him as his own professional achievements. 3 months after Maria's hospitalization, Adrian received a call from Dr. Chen with news that would change everything again. "Maria's recovery has exceeded all our expectations," Dr. Chen said. "She's regained full cognitive function and most of her physical strength. From a medical standpoint, she's ready to resume normal activities, including work." Adrian felt a complex mix of emotions. Joy at Maria's recovery combined with an unexpected sense of loss. The Kim family would be ready to return to their own lives soon, and his house would return to its previous quiet emptiness. That evening, he sat down with Maria and her children to discuss their plans for the future. "Dr. Chen says you're ready to go back to work," Adrian said to Maria. "Yes," Maria replied, though her expression was thoughtful rather than excited. "But I've been thinking about what I want to do next." "What do you mean?" "Living here, seeing how you've built your business, it's made me realize that I want to do more than just survive," Maria said. "I want to build something for my children." Adrian leaned forward with interest. "What kind of something?" "I've been thinking about starting a cleaning service," Maria said. "I know the business. And I know there are other women like me who need flexible work that allows them to care for their families. I could provide employment and training, maybe even help other immigrant families get established." Adrian felt a surge of excitement. "That's a brilliant idea. Have you thought about the logistics?" "Some," Maria said. "But I don't know anything about business plans or financing or marketing." "I do," Adrian said. "And I'd love to help you develop the concept." Jasmine looked up from her homework. "Does this mean we're staying?" Adrian looked at Maria, who was smiling for the first time since her recovery began. "I think," he said carefully, "that depends on what your mother wants to do." "I want to stay," Maria said without hesitation. "Not as your guests, but as your partners. I want to build my business while the children finish growing up in this house, in this community, with the opportunities you've given them. And I want to make this official," Adrian said, surprising himself with the words. "I want to formally adopt all 3 of you, if you'll let me." The silence that followed was profound. Danny and Marcus looked at their mother with hope and confusion, not entirely understanding what adoption meant, but sensing its importance. Jasmine stared at Adrian with tears in her eyes. "You want to adopt us?" she whispered. "I want to be your family," Adrian said. "Legally, officially, permanently. I want to be there for every milestone, every challenge, every success. I want to help you all achieve your dreams." Maria was crying now, but her smile was radiant. "Yes," she said. "Yes, we want that too." The legal process took several months, but on a sunny Saturday morning in October, Adrian Wells officially became the adoptive father of Jasmine, Danny, and Marcus Kim, and the legal guardian of Maria as she continued to build her business. Standing in the courthouse with his new family, Adrian reflected on how dramatically his life had changed since that morning when he discovered a scared 13-year-old girl taking sandwiches from his company's break room. He had gained so much more than he had given, learning lessons about love, sacrifice, and the true meaning of success that no business school could have taught him. 6 months later, Wells Industries announced the launch of the Jasmine Kim Family Support Initiative, a comprehensive program designed to assist employees and their families during times of crisis. The program provided emergency financial assistance, childcare support, educational resources, and business development opportunities for employees looking to start their own enterprises. Maria's cleaning service, Kim Family Solutions, had grown to employ 12 women and had contracts with several major Seattle businesses. Jasmine had been accepted into a prestigious summer program for gifted students at the University of Washington. Danny had made the all-star soccer team, and Marcus had won a citywide art contest for elementary school students. But the most significant change was in Adrian himself. The man who had once measured success solely in terms of profit margins and market share now understood that true success was measured in the lives you touched and the families you helped flourish. On the anniversary of the day he first found Jasmine in the break room, Adrian gathered his adoptive family around their dinner table for a celebration that had become an annual tradition. "1 year ago today," he said, raising his glass of sparkling cider, "a brave young girl taught me what real courage looks like. She showed me that sometimes the most important thing you can do is ask for help, and sometimes the most important thing you can do is offer it." Jasmine, now 14 and glowing with confidence and health, raised her own glass. "1 year ago today, I thought my world was ending. Instead, it was just beginning." "To family," Adrian said. "To family," they all echoed, and as their glasses clinked together, Adrian knew that he had finally discovered what real success looked like. It looked like a girl who had been caught stealing lunches, but had actually been saving her family. It looked like a mother who had turned her recovery into an opportunity to help others. It looked like two little boys who were growing up knowing they were loved and protected. It looked like a family that had been created not by blood, but by choice, courage, and the willingness to see beyond surface appearances to the extraordinary potential that lies within every human being. Years later, when business magazines wrote articles about Adrian Wells and his innovative approach to corporate social responsibility, they always mentioned the Jasmine Kim Family Support Initiative. But they rarely understood that the program wasn't just Adrian's gift to his employees. It was his way of honoring the girl who had taught him that sometimes the most important business you can conduct happens in a break room at 7:45 in the morning, when someone brave enough to steal sandwiches for love gives you the chance to discover what really matters in life. The story of the girl who was caught stealing lunches had become the story of how a family was born, how a business was transformed, and how sometimes the most beautiful outcomes grow from the most desperate beginnings. It was a reminder that behind every act of apparent wrongdoing might be a story of love, sacrifice, and courage that has the power to change everything for everyone involved. In the end, Jasmine Kim hadn't just been caught stealing lunches. She had been caught caring more about her family than her own safety, and that act of love had created ripples that would continue to spread throughout the Wells Industries family for generations to come. She had taught a successful CEO that the most important business metric wasn't profit per share, but rather the number of lives improved, families preserved, and dreams made possible through the simple act of seeing past the surface to the extraordinary potential that lies within every human being who walks through your door.